As you can see in the video, we are not just responsible for technicalities of security industry. We are responsible for the staffing, the service provider, employees, and we have to regulate it in a way that we can promote for SMEs and major companies. That's the main thing. I mean, the drive of any economic development is SMEs. So the video shows here what are our responsibilities as SIRA. We have a lot of responsibility. The uniqueness of SIRA is that we are gathering different sectors of private security, which is man guarding and technical requirement. And this is not anywhere in the world. Actually, now some countries are willing to do it because there is always a conflict between man guarding and security systems. Some people say this is our responsibility and that one. So the governments are thinking of combining and doing such a setup as SIRA. I think Singapore is coordinating with us in that one, and we have signed an MOM with them, and MOI, sorry, and we are starting to see this one coming in other countries. This is our mission and vision. It's all about security, private security. We didn't specify about anything else. Our mission is very clearly showing we have to be updated with the new technologies coming in. We have to update it with the new threats coming in, and we have to get updated with the economic situation in Dubai. So we are not affected by Dubai or Emirates. We are affected by the current Middle East region because there is different threats coming in. What our mission says is a few words. It's called preventative security, preventative soft security. And this is our main motto that we always think in all decisions, is preventative security. That's how you get a proactive initiative than a reactive initiative. We have a lot of developers come in and they say, why you are asking us to do all of this as long as nothing happened? So why you are waiting for something to happen to start doing something? That time, you will not have time, you will not have money, and you will not have technology. So you have to be initiating new things up. So all of this is based on threat coming in. We have a regional threat, we have an internal threat. All of this will determine what SIRA is doing. I'm of a military rank, but I'm talking here as a civilian. But we think about risk assessment. We always check in risk assessment. We risk assess the region. We risk assess the different development happening here. Dubai is always coming up with a new building scheme that is nowhere in the world. So we have to adopt to that one. So today I'm going to talk about the history of SIRA, what it started for people who are not familiar with it. Then I'm going to talk about SIRA harmonization, how we harmonize our rules and regulations to the current situation. The pandemic, what the effects we had in the pandemic, and what's after the pandemic we are expecting. We have a preventative system manual grace period. This is always a confusion regarding this one because we are having here some of the security system users, we call them. So that had to be explained. Videoguard, the rumors about Videoguard. This is a system that, a centralized system that we implemented. So there is some points I would like to highlight here. And the security industry future. So what we are expecting is coming in. Okay, we would like to be the first to implement it, but we cannot implement it based on a decision or a supplier. SIRA is always, all of their systems, like the ANPR, which ISS is approved, it's an open platform systems. We never use a closed platform, single manufacturer, single supplier systems. We all make it open platform like the GSM. When GSM, I don't know, I'm too old for that. I remember the telephones, the Panasonic ones, which you have to take to Ittisalat to reprogram it. But when the SIM cards came in, other brands came in, it opened up the market, a new trade started up. That's what's the benefit of open platform. So the same the methodology, we are doing it with the security industry. So the history. Actually, SIRA started way before under Dubai Police. We started in 1999, and there was a case, and that opened up the eye of the government that we need a standardization of the security systems in Dubai. So it started in 1999. Then in 2005, the first preventative manual was issued. It was a very basic. It was a startup. A lot of people got shocked, but at that time, 2005, all the systems were analog. I'm an engineer, so I'll talk about technical a lot because that affects a lot of things. Then in 2008, the second version came up, which showed up the benefits of 2005, but it showed up some shortcomings in the law. In 2008, the requirement was based on cases that we were receiving from the police, which is a strategic partner, Dubai Police, and other regional threats. So we based 2008 on that one. Then we have the third version. It's in 2016. But here you can see the logo changed. In 2016, there was a decree that the government saw that DPS, which was SIRA, before SIRA, it's too small to run this vast, widening city. So from there was a decision of making us an agency, and we become SIRA, as we are known right now. Then the latest third version of the preventative manual was issued in January 2019. A lot of people would think, why there is a gap between 2008 second version and the third version? The reason is that during this time, there was the first economical crisis in 2008. So you cannot present that one. Second reason is that the technology was developing. What we see a trend there is that all the manufacturers were pressurizing IP technology. Use IP, use IP, use IP. But unfortunately, like any technology, it has pros and cons. One of its cons at that time was it was too expensive. It was still unreliable, and all of them were closed systems, not an open platform. So what happened there is that we decided to delay introducing any new requirement in Dubai. So why that is? It has an economic benefit and legislation benefit, is that people will be able to do the requirement later on. And plus to that, the IP technology, the more it's being used, the more people are getting familiar with it. We get the chance to train the engineers and the technicians who have to be certified by us to be able to give a good service. The issue here is that people or even developers or project managers of all the development here in Dubai, they work with the CCTV or with the security systems as a brick wall. They think you can keep it for 10 or 12 years. There's a depreciation on it, and they have to put it in account. They put it in a drawing, and they think that's it. They don't know that later on the project, when it changes, the decoration affects the location. So that's the dilemma that we are always on, and we're still in it. So how do we cope with this? How can we cope with the challenges of Dubai? How can we cope with the risk that is coming in locally and globally and regionally? So our most decisions are based on 3 elements. Okay, not in a specific order. Okay, but usually there is always a technical requirements that comes in, and Once the technical requirements comes in, we see how can we legislate it. Sorry for the writing because it was different on my PC. So we have to harmonize between technical requirement and legislation, but you cannot achieve both of them without the licensing and administration procedures. Is that you make things easy for the security service users to implement the requirements. And plus to that, sometimes legislation comes before the technical requirement. We have a lot of times that we get some threats and the legislator tells us, put a solution for it. Then when we go to the technical requirements, then we go to the administrative and licensing procedures to work on it and to implement it. And for your information, any change requires time. The number of entities that we have that's under SIRA, the licensed entities, about 8,800. The unlicensed entities, which is residential buildings and complexes and stuff, is in excess of 42,000. So we are working with that. We are flexible with these projects because not all projects are the same. You can see it from the sky is the same, but the people who are running the projects are different. So that's why we are a little bit more cooperative, but there is a borderline, of course. Some of the colleagues that are sitting here knows what I mean. And that concludes that SIRA is based on these three elements and our decisions. Any decision we'll take will affect the security service provider by the sales, by their methodology of approaching the clients and everything, and the security service user. We are thinking of both and how to make it balance between them. Balancing between these two entities is not an easy job because everybody wants to save money and everybody wants to make money. Okay, a lot of people or developers say that security systems is a non-revenue cost. Okay, I would like to say for these people is that you are short-minded because security systems is a value-added service. So if you have a value-added service, you're going to get it on the long run. It's not a tangible return. Like everybody wants to make his KPI in the end of the year so he can make his bonus. Okay, and this is what's causing the issue with security industry is that their mind is for 1 year, but we think of 5 years, 6 years. Any regulation change, it requires minimum of 1.5 years to be implemented. It takes time. But unfortunately, a lot of people are short-minded. They just want to finish their project. And this is where the problem comes in. When you are finishing a project, you don't have time, you don't have money, and you want to return back the revenue because you owe the bank's money or installments. So all of that is taken into consideration, what I'm saying. We are having a dilemma here. Some people say, we are dealing with the security service providers and the users. We listen to them and to their comments. But bear in mind that we have other things that is considered as a red borderline that we cannot cross, which is the safetiness of Dubai. That's when we say to them, stop. That's where you stop. Because for my 11 years in SIRA, DPS and SIRA, I've seen people that would not like, they don't like to install any camera. They don't want to. I said, you have to protect your property. He said, I don't care. I care about, I'm getting revenue, then I will install. No, you don't do that. I mean, you have to put the infrastructure to be able to do it. So some people, we have that mentality. The pandemic. Everybody went through the pandemic. It was a shock. What happened? We're still suffering from the pandemic. But the beginning of the pandemic, the affected security service providers mainly was guarding and security system installation. The guarding companies, suddenly their guards don't have any jobs. They don't have revenue. And they started to close down. These are small companies. The major ones just reduced their manpower, but the main affected ones were the guarding companies. The second was security system installation companies, security service providers. A lot of projects got delayed. A lot of cash flow was stopped. And they got shortage of shipments in the beginning of the pandemic. So even if he wants to do the job, and even if there's cash, the logistics were almost paralyzed. So when it started to come back, when the cash flow came back, they started to come back to business again, but they are still suffering. The guarding, they came back much earlier than the installation because guarding personnel are considered as one of the first defense. So when you go to a mall, who's standing there taking your temperature when the beginning of pandemic? It was a guard, and he was in a very high risk of infection. Security service users. You can see that some people say, no, real estate got affected more. We say, according to statistics, gold and jewelry got affected much, much more than real estate. If we take it based on volume, yes, real estate is much higher, but based on license, jewelry and gold and jewelry were affected a lot. We have chain of shops, which is a big chain, just closed up because it couldn't do it. And that affected few things, is that the infection rate. I mean, usually these jewelry shops, they are in groups living together and they're getting infected, shops are closing up. Second, logistics were very slow, so they got affected. And from the importing, the exporting of gold countries, there were some what we call complications, especially with disinfecting of the merchants coming in, because this is a valuable item, so the procedure is much longer than a normal item. Real estate, of course, real estate is based on pay and you get whatever you want, and people were afraid. So if you have an establishment on map and you have a payment, most people didn't pay. They were holding to their money, they were afraid. The good news is, and the surprising news is that the last 2 months, we've seen a rise in the sales of villas. The land department announced, not land, sorry, I'mar announced that they have a raise of sales of 250%. And that was strange. I mean, we didn't expect that coming, but it came. So what was the reason for it? The reason for it is that most of the countries saw how UAE dealt with the pandemic. And they were amazed and they liked it. So a lot of families are moving in, and they are rich families, so they can buy pre-built, ready houses. So the rate of the sales increased on the villas, and I didn't believe it actually, and went and checked it out. Actually, I had an incident happened. I took my son for the vaccination when they started vaccinating small kids, and it was in the World Central, the World Trade Center. They have a big vaccination center there. So I was sitting there, and there was 3 people, an old lady and an old guy and a young lady. So he was looking at me, and he started talking. He was Lebanese, and he told me, "Are you local?" I said, "Yes, I am." And he started praising the country. He said, "I'm moving in. I will not stay in Lebanon." Of course, Lebanon, we know what happened there. But he came then, his daughter made a residence visa for him and everything, and they are moving in Dubai, and they will run their business from here. So that's an example of people moving in. I was, shocked that people think of that, because we treat everybody the same. I mean, everybody has to get vaccinated. Although we have a lot of people who think it's a conspiracy, as usual. And people agree with me and people don't agree with me, but this pandemic taught us a lot of things. It shows who's selfish or who's not selfish. This is my personal point of view, is that if you are selfish, you will not do the precautionary measures. you just go ahead, you go to the conspiracy theory. I have friends that they lost half of their families, close ones, because they were conspiracy theory believers. That's unfortunate. And I have some of family members in Bahrain that every once in a while I hear somebody of them is dying. And this is death. It's not a joke. So for me, the pandemic is not a virus pandemic. For me, it's the pandemic is a social media pandemic. Anybody, my personal point of view, anybody who talks about the pandemic and he's not specialized have to be courted. Because these people who made this pandemic as big as it is, the social media and how it was spread and how they talk about everything, how is questioning the government, what is doing. I think UAE government proves a very good point that there isn't any conspiracy. Okay, even if there is a conspiracy, I don't care. I care about myself, about my family, that they are safe, and my community. If we don't have community, we are nothing. So that's the pandemic, actually. I took a lot of time in pandemic because social media is, I call it a sweet poison. It wastes your time, it wastes your brains, and it wastes your intelligence. So we try to reduce it as much as we can. You should reduce effectiveness of conventional security system. Everybody's wearing masks now. So facial recognition companies are suffering from that. And you cannot go to the conventional way of monitoring. Security systems are built for monitoring, right? So how can you do it with the mask on? There is a lot of analytics going on, but from our experience, like facial recognition from a certain region of the world comes in here in Dubai, it doesn't work. Because the facial dimensions and the facials are totally different here in Dubai, because we are having 155 nationalities and they are working and their facial expressions are totally different and the dimensions are different. So they come in and they say, we give you a 99% accuracy. It doesn't work. Now we have the mask. The solution of some of the facial recognition companies is that to increase the resolution of the cameras. Before they promise you with the full HD, now they are going to 8 megapixel. That dilemma, I can talk about it all day long, about increasing the resolution to overcome something. It doesn't work because not all the conditions you can control. The higher the resolution, and now this is physics, the more lighting you want. And the lighting conditions are not controllable in any location. I mean, in hotels, they like it to make it dim. So it's more relaxing. They will not put lights such as these, or they will not put spotlight people coming in. So that's one of the things that always the service provider don't tell the client. They just want them to buy the 8 megapixel. Or the usual trick of some of the companies from a certain region is that you ask them for full HD, you say, no, I'll upgrade you to 8 megapixel or 4K. Then later on, you're going to pay more than what you should. Okay, preventative system manual grace period. And the preventative system manual was issued on January 2019, and we directly announced that we're going to give a grace period. Why we give such a big grace period? For these reasons. First of all, the transition requires major upgrades, which is infrastructure. Going from analog to IP requires major infrastructure upgrade, change of cameras, position, and angles, because the future of VSS systems is that sooner or later we're going to use some kind of analytics and AI. It's coming. Maybe not now, but it's going to maturity level right now. So if your sensors which is the CCTV camera or whatever other sensors, are not accurate enough. So whatever is you're basing on it, it's not accurate. And that's what we seen in our trials with facial recognition. We have the VMS, the introduction of VMS in the systems and the new regulation. We asked entities with a certain criteria to have a VMS system. Why is that done? Is that manageability for security bodies, even the operations and the entity. We have seen some malls that they ask what the law requires, just put it, don't put anything else. Even if it affects its operation, they don't care. They just want to save money and make money, of course. We introduced smart UPS and monitoring room screen specification because it wasn't clear. Now it's clear. Before it was based on analog, now it's on IP, which is the benefits of IP is the manageability of the IP systems. You can manage it very easily. You can remote manage it. You can remote manage it. You can remote manage a system. Because yesterday, somebody sent a general question. We had the SPA, Security Professional Association, which is under SIRA. There was a question someone asked. It said, I have a system that converts analog to IP through coaxial, and I would like to use it. The first question I asked him, first of all, can you manage the cameras remotely or not? Because some cameras in some hotels, he cannot come and put what's called the scaffolding and start working in front of people. They have to do it midnight or wait for maintenance. He said, no, it cannot be done. Then we said, no, you have to go a full-fledged IT solution. The biggest issue with actually with the UTB or data is that the distance of the cable. You know, coax goes up to 900 meters, but UTB goes up to 100 meters. So you must have equipment, active equipment, IDF rooms. That's one of the challenges that increase the cost. It's not the equipment itself, it's not the cameras, it's not the recording servers, it's this civil work and these IDFs that increase the prices. Grace period was given 3 years from January 2019. And we informed everybody, and even in the inspection report, that you have 3 years to migrate to the new requirements. And that grace period is going to finish in January 2022, which is very close. We're having about a few months to coming, 6 months or 7 months. And this grace period will go away and people will be held accountable and we start fining and everything. Unfortunately, most of the entities didn't do anything, even before the pandemic. They are waiting for the last moment. What they don't know is that the last moment will accumulate fines on them. The last moment, it shows that they are not cooperative. So that's a very bad decision they have taken. So, and the grace period of 3 years to convert is it's more than enough for budgetary reasons, for project management reasons, and for other reasons that involve importing of equipment. I don't know, maybe this grace period, it will be increased or not, because as we know that we have another pandemic coming in, which is the chip shortage. Everybody's suffering now, all the security service providers are suffering, and they are seeing the lights of the chip shortage in the world. And this is, I call it a pandemic, because it will affect us in everything. I'm seeing reports, biased reports, that it will affect even the personal level. You want to go and buy a TV, it's 2 times the price of it, or maybe 50% more. You're going to buy a computer, the prices will go up. Okay, the recovery from this, they are expecting up to 2 to 3 years to recover, to go back to what we were. Of course, this is based on reports. We never know, somebody maybe comes up and builds up a new factory. But this is a new pandemic coming in. This is a technological pandemic, which will affect us all who are sitting here. And of course, as SIRA, we are taking a very close monitoring of that one, because I don't want to pressurize the security service users to do something that he cannot do. So we take that into consideration a lot. Videoguard, it's a centralized system for monitoring security systems. There is a lot of reasons we put that one in, but I want to highlight a few things. Is that the manufacturers, they have to approve only one model, and he can give that approval to his distributor for approval. Not a location which has 5 equipment pieces, and for each one he has to approve, although they are same model. That's wrong. This is what the security service providers are using to get more revenue. They say, no, I have to approve each device by itself. No, if that model is approved, even the certificate from the manufacturer is enough to approve the site. Recording devices and VMS, this is what I mentioned just now. The bandwidth, the upload bandwidth. The calculation is 0.8 Mbps per camera, maximum of 10 Mbps. That's the cap. They don't go more. Unfortunately, one of the telecommunication companies saw this and they restructured the package to get more revenue, of course. And can use shared internet. Some people think Videoguard, like other Emirates, requires a dedicated internet line. We don't want. You can use a shared one as long as that cap is kept, which is 10 Mbps. Security industry future. More usage of analytics and security system. Why I'm saying analytics? Because everybody knows, I don't believe with the Chinese saying AI, AI, AI. AI is coming, but it's not mature enough. It's not mature. The analytics are not mature enough. Does it give you 100%? Okay, the AI here to help humanity or to replace them. So can you replace a person to be using a system? No. We've seen very promising analytics that they do their job well. But once the person who's running that analytics and teaching it goes away and somebody else comes in, the accuracy goes down. So it means it's related to human. I mean, it cannot replace it till now. Okay. And plus to that, we have some issues that is affecting the analytics. First of all, the privacy of the person. I mean, we had some establishments which have a large number of branches would like to use facial recognition. I said, okay, according to the electronic crime law in UAE, you are not allowed to store any definition of a person to identify him. Very clear, okay, unless it's a security agency. So we have a privacy issue here. We have the false alarms. We've seen a lot of analytics being, there's an analytic, which is not a facial recognition actually, it's like a behavior analysis system. It's used in one of the malls. One of the biggest things that they are suffering, the operators in the operation room or the monitoring room, is that we are having a lot of false alarms. So what they are doing, they are saying silence it, normality, silence it, normality. After 6 months of usage, that system didn't produce any alarms, although they are true alarms. Because the person who's teaching it is too bored. So there is the definition of false alarm. You don't want false alarms. So there's a calculation, there's an algorithm coming in regarding this one. I've seen it in a promising company in Abu Dhabi, actually. They put in a camera on the screen of the operator, and it reads the expression of the person. It learns the expression of the person. Then the decision that he takes it's monitored. So you are monitoring the monitorer. Okay, I don't know if this is going to go 4th or 5th level, but it's proven its success. I really like it. And one of the best thing in it is that if you are sitting in front of the screen and you raise your phone up, it blanks the screen. It blanks all the screens. You bring the phone down, the screens come back. Very innovative way of thinking. So that may solve the false alarm issue. That may solve the analytics teaching phase. There's a teaching phase. Analytics are like babies that you are growing up. Analytics to AI. Okay, as I mentioned before, for us, I call it analytics. I don't call it AI because the definition of AI for each industry is different. And medical is different, and security is different, and video surveillance is different, and access control is different, and vehicle tracking is different. So, are we seeing AI soon? It all depends on the people who are programming it. That's what I will say. Dependent on people. So if an AI is dependent on people, then it's not an AI, it's an analytics. It's analyzing only. We are teaching it. We are taking it back. We're making it grow up, and something happens, we go to relearn it again. So still, it's like a teenager. Every day is in a mood. So that's what our analytics are. AI, I used to say that that's a buzz, that's a commercial buzz, that's a marketing buzz. I've seen, what makes me really laugh is that some people will come in, I have an AI remote that goes front and back and laser. This is very smart. And people say, oh, yeah. So you don't stick anything smart to anything. There is smart people out there still. I don't know about the next generation, the social media generation, but now we have some people who are smart. So you don't stick anything smart to it. You don't stick anything AI to it. Because in one of the conferences, somebody asked me, I said, I asked somebody actually, and I said to him, what's the definition of AI? And he was saying, I have an AI system. I have an AI system. I said, what's the definition of AI for you? What's the definition of AI in your company? He couldn't give me a good answer. He couldn't give me, I said, okay, the AI in this system that you are mentioning is different than the AI is mentioning here. Are they the same? He said, no, we analyze. I said, you went back to analytics again. He analyzed it. So from our perspective as SIRA, and that's one of the, we see that analytics and AI has to be regulated that benefits the humanity. So we have a lot of people coming in and saying, I want to use analytics for people who are coming into my establishment. I said, okay, when you take their information, that's when you cross the borderline of privacy. You can take heat maps easily. You can say head counts. You can take all of that. That's basic analytics. But advanced analytics, no, it has to be regularized. One of the petrol stations in the UAE would like to use the plate number just to make the signboards in the petrol station. They are having VIP clients. So when he comes with this car, they know this VIP client, he likes like mochaccino. So they start putting mochaccino on the display, which is a smart display, they call it. It's not a smart, it's profiling. Okay, that's why don't stick smart to anything. So they put that one and they ask for the information of the plate number. I said, listen, it's coming on your premises. The plate number is solely your property because he came in with the permission, and that's the law. But what they asked is that they want to pull his information from the traffic system to know who he is. I said, no, that's the borderline that you cannot cross. That's the database that nobody can touch. So there is a good use and bad use. There is good people and bad people. Edge technology. So what we see as SIRA and edge technology. Edge technology is very promising. Number one, edge technology, we can see it as a future of citywide surveillance, not cameras, not other things, edge technology. Because when you have a distributed computing, you have a lot of power to do your main job. Our main job is to keeping everything secure. and the secure of information. So edge technology does that. Unfortunately, the reason for edge technology is telecommunication companies and their prices. So you have two choices here. The most common sensor is a camera. So some of the telecommunication companies will say, we have to stream back. I said, okay, you have to stream. He's making revenue for himself. Okay, streaming back has its challenges, its prices. The prices are very high for streaming back. So what you do part of analysis on the site, which is a remote computing, okay? And from there, the edge technology comes in. That's a big role on implementing citywide surveillance. The remote management, you can manage and update everything from far away. So you have any updates or anything, you can do it. Standalone systems, it's dependent on security service provider, but in remote management, you can do a lot of things with that one, with the edge technology. Now the question is, the edge technology, every analytical software provider does their processing in a different way. I've seen some of them use GPUs, some of them use CPUs, okay? But it's not about using GPU or CPU. It's all about the capacity of that one. Because in the end, the security service user will pay for it eventually. So I've seen GPUs that process 15 cameras for facial recognition. And I've seen GPUs that process 2, but different companies. Although the accuracy is the same, the metadata cannot be interchanged. So we went back to the basics, is that we take the capture of the face or the number of images, we centralized process it to be able to do that one. We entered in a different place, which is big data processing. So the edge technology will help out in big data collecting and processing. It's a distributed processing. Emerging of other security sensors. There was a hype before the pandemic, facial recognition. Everybody had facial recognition. So now we don't have facial recognition. We have mask. And we're going to continue with the mask another 1 or 2 years. So what's the solution? Is that the manufacturer have to look to other surveillance sensors. Some of them, they are going to iris scan. Some of them are going to the body motion. Some of them are going to other ways of sensory. To be able to secure, you have to surveillance. You have to store some information. I have colleagues in Europe that I'm always in contact with them. And I told them what happened after the GDRP. He said it made our work harder tenfold. I said, why? Because we don't have any information. We don't have any leads to work on. So we have to look for leads. We have to do that. But in the law, if you look for a lead and you create a lead, that's illegal. So they said it made our life much harder. I said the GDRP is, from my professional perspective, is untrust between the government and the people. And thank God we don't have this here, that massive like in Europe. So that affects a lot. So that's why in the beginning I said analytics have to be regulated. We have to regulate analytics, is that it doesn't go in wrong hands and it is not being misused by any party that is using it. Cloud-based security systems. This you asked me to talk about. Okay. Although my opinion about cloud and cloud is very clear. The challenges of cloud is as follows. Telecommunication, prices. Second, usually most of the cloud-based is that the service provider of the cloud uses one partner only. It's not an open platform. So that one partner has the access to very private information and they are not monitored. So who's running that company? Who's running that cloud? Are they machines? No, are people. And some people are not trusted. As I said, there is good people and there is bad people. Okay, so cloud-based is a good thing for computing purposes only. For us as SIRA, we didn't approve cloud yet. Okay, I know that telecommunication companies will hate me for this because they want to sell. They want to reach their KPI and get their bonus. And cloud-based is that there is no guarantee of latency. There is no guarantee of missing of frames. I'm talking my police side. I've worked on cases, very major cases, that we used to go frame by frame to extract parts of the information for a single second. So if we go on cloud-based and we transmit it to somewhere else, what do you guarantee that the transmission is as pure as it be? What happens in the IT world is that you have packets going and corrupted packets coming back and going back, correct? So in a perfect environment, a laboratory condition, this will work. In actual life, it won't work. It requires management, it requires a lot of maintenance, it requires a lot of follow-up. So cloud-based, same as analytics, we have to wait and see how it goes on. There was a price comparison between locally storing one of the biggest hotels in Dubai. They were going to go to cloud and they came to us. So I said, before you see the marketing thing, which the salesman wants to sell you your jacket you are wearing, okay, look at the pricing. When they compared the pricing, because the number of cameras is very high, and the people who are going on the cloud, they expect, one of them made a joke that day, and I was laughing at him actually. It wasn't a joke, he was serious. He said, say Grand Hyatt Hotel, how many cameras? I said, how many cameras do you think they have? He said, well, 35, 40. I said, 35, 40 is in the lobby only. They have an excess of 1,600 cameras. He got shocked. He said, no, how I will transmit it, how I'm going to store it, how I'm going to do that. It needs a lot of computing power. I said, exactly, that's what I'm talking about. You don't know what's the market. You don't know what's the end user having. So cloud-based, it's a hype. It's like taking your things and throwing it to other people's place. It's good for some places, but it's not good for everything. It's like putting your money with somebody else. Okay, you have to trust that person, like a bank. Now, even banks are not trusted. Some people say they have a conspiracy or something. I don't know. I mean, everybody's talking about conspiracy theory now, especially makeup artists talking about the pandemic. I will not take the vaccination because this is a conspiracy. Come on. And people believe them. Unfortunately, people believe them. Okay. Finished.
I have to say, this is one of the, hold on a second. I think this is one of the rare occasions where we thank a speaker for being massively over his time allotted in the program. This has been an amazing address, and my head is actually exploding with the ideas in it. I think it may be a good idea if we allow folks to ask you some questions. Now, remember, we're going to have a panel at the end where we want you to stay. We love the fact that you're bashing the cloud. Social media is embarrassed, and God knows what the conspiracy theorists are saying on the Zoom as well. But let's stop just to say, it's unless there's something very important, hold the ideas.
Finished. Yeah.
It's been brilliant. I do have some questions that have been coming in, but first, for the folks in the room, there is a lot of meat on this bone. Anyone got a question they want to pose to Engineer Arif? Okay, I've got one that's coming from the Zoom, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I have a bunch of my own. This is in regard to the chip shortage that you spoke of earlier. When do you think this will hit the Middle East fully? And will we keep ahead of the game, or is this going to be a worldwide issue?
It's already a worldwide issue, okay? It's going to hit the Middle East. The expected reports are after 3 months or 4 months, because major projects, they've already imported the equipment that's coming in. So the new projects that are manufacturing for it will be delayed. Like cars. Now, a lot of cars production are stopped. And they are the main reason for the chip shortage. But according to the security service providers that we met, they are expecting to come after 3 months because they are seeing the rise in prices. Unfortunately, the rise of the prices is only not chips. Iron went up, copper went up, gold went up because of this, and mainly lumber, wood. Wood, we know why, because of the American helping check. But these things affect each other. They are all in one manufacturing cycle.
I'm going to ask one more question, knowing that we'll kind of come around on this. So here's the question. You and SIRA have been the keepers of the bar in terms of raising the bar, and you've raised it in regular increments. Where and when can we expect the next raise of the bar?
There won't be a major raise in the bar. There is a refining of the requirements, which we announced on January 2022 in Intersec. We're going to amend the requirements, but they are not major impact, as I mentioned. Very minor impact, very minor. And I expect this will continue for another 5 to 6 years, which is the life expectancy of any VSS system or any security system.
Interesting. I mean, I have to say, because we're going to close this off in a minute, we want to show some recognition to you, but your presentation this morning not only shows your love of your country and your main mission to protect Dubai, enormous attention to detail, but also your empathy and your sympathy for all of the constituents in the security industry, for which you should be absolutely congratulated and thanked.